So, if we can now sum up a bit from the three different tracks, and usually the last one will go last, but I will go first with track 3. So, track 3 with the media, migrants, and consumption or representation, we have 3 items on the presentation list. So, the first one was from PSM, who was presenting gaming and informal learning of English among Swedish youth. And yeah, that's good. Thank you. She made a very interesting presentation about. I think the most interesting thing that I noted was about young learners who had barely started learning English in school with very advanced knowledge of English that they picked up through computer games. I mean, it's not news to us, but it's interesting to look some research into those topics. Then we had an interesting presentation from Kerstin Gustafsson Figueroa from the news agency Järva, which is an area of Stockholm where we have predominantly population of migrants, and how they engage over 200 writers, journalists, like community journalists from the area, and they, as professional journalists, they edit these texts and share them locally, and they have a very good following of, I think, 200,000 users per year according to their Google Analytics, and that was very interesting. And then we had Marie Rödemark, a YouTuber. She couldn't join because she had some family issue to handle, but she engaged with this track through what she usually does. So through a YouTube video. She has, I think, 60,000 subscribers on YouTube to her channel, and like 8 million views on YouTube. So she presented here at the conference through a YouTube video where she talked about her roller coaster space travel kind of thing, coming from a reality of being a teacher in a small municipality of 10,000 inhabitants in the northern part of Sweden, and they received a huge number, like 1,100 refugees to that small municipality. And they, Marie, she participated as being a author of language textbooks in French. She decided that she could write language learning material in Swedish, and she did that, but instead of writing a book, she decided that let's do that in a different way. So she did this on YouTube, and one of our Burak and Ness, who shared their personal story about how they learned Swedish, they are a consumer of Marie's videos, and Burak thanked her very much for this. And then when it comes to the let's see here, we'll switch to this thing here. We had a discussion in our room. Let's see if I can show this here. So we talked about, we had 2 questions. So the first one was about what media types could be especially beneficial at different skill levels in migrants' language development. And we had a discussion, like at our table, we discussed, there was one point that was brought up that most of the media types are circling around text, and this is, since they are illiterate learners in quite a few illiterate learners, there needs to be more media types that does not, it might not even show text with the learning material. It should be more about the audio and images rather than audio, images, and text, or audio and text, and things like that, to bring in the text later and things like that. So that was discussed. And then, of course, since Pia was in our talk, we talked a bit about computer games and board games. And since they can be very simple board games to extremely complex role-playing games, I think that accommodates to all different skill levels. We talked about that. Music, good for maybe early stages, because music is very simple language. Okay. So those were some points that we opened up in the discussions in our track. We had the second question was pros and cons when migrant learners consume media that other migrant learners produce, like Nyhetsbyrån on Järva, the news agency Järva. So we found a lot of pros, so relevance. So I mean, if they write about their community, it's relevant also for others in the community, and agency, of course, being part of that, and feel connectivity. You can also maybe discuss sensitive issues in a different way when you share that, as a prosumers, or whatever it's called, the term. And also, it's of course a way, because majority media could pick up, as a kind of byproduct of that process to integrate minority issues in majority media. There were also some cons that we brought up, so there could be bias in language and and cultural bias too, when it's kind of isolated, and of course if it's unedited texts that is consumed by other learners, it might preserve errors. So that's something. I think it's good if you can edit some of it. So those were like a recap of my track. So who wants to take the next track? Henrik?
Yes, I can summarize what we discussed in track. I don't think I need that microphone. I can summarize what we spoke about in track number 1, or the presentations that we had. Can you put that up on there, maybe? We had an extremely interesting presentation from Sanna Falk at the municipality outside Stockholm. And the connection there is that we have a partnership at Språkkraft with this municipality. And she gave a very interesting presentation about how they work strategically with partnerships with civil society. First of all, through their civil society forum, which is a meeting place that they organize with the politicians from the city, meeting with civil society on a regular basis to discuss how civil society can work together with the municipality and vice versa. And from this year, they have organized what is in Sweden called an idea-based public partnership, which is a formal way of involving civil society and local NGOs. And they had intentionally sort of taken the decision to start these kind of partnerships with organizations working on integration initiatives in various ways. So we discussed how fruitful this has been, and since this is something that they have started only this year, only in these past 9 months or so, they have learned a lot about how they can work together with civil society in a very productive way. And we, as an organization, part of such a partnership, we could also say how extremely good it has been from our perspective. And then we had an interesting other perspective on in a presentation from the city of Larissa in Greece, which is of course a completely different situation from a municipality in Sweden, where Dimitra from the city explained how they work with engaging refugees who are in their city, focusing on how they can engage them and also develop language skills through informal practices with a lot of different activities. And their organization was completely different in the sense that all the activities similar to the ones that are organized by civil society or NGOs in a municipality in Sweden were organized by the actual municipality. So they organized everything and led these kind of volunteer-based activities in that city. So it was a very, very interesting introduction and presentation about that. We had some discussions regarding different perspectives that were interesting. And so I recommend that you go and look at the presentations after the fact, if you were not in that room, because most of you were not in that room. So yes, and we so I think that we had some participants from here in Oslo who also saw the initiatives that Sanna presented from this municipality in Sweden as very positive, and maybe something that we can see and build on here too. Was that a good summary? What do you think here?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. And yeah, has a large contract too.
Thank you very much. We have talked about language learning on the workplace, and we talked a lot about where to learn, what to learn, and how to learn. And we had two people from Roskilde University, and I'm sorry, but we lost one of the online people. Something went wrong, and we couldn't get Maria on from the online. So we have the two of them from Roskilde to tell us about that. They've been studying a lot of workplace learning, Danish as a second language, and Norwegian as a second language. And we have the discussion about the politicians who think if you put people on the workplace, they will automatically learn the language. And research has shown that the language spoken on the workplace absolutely isn't making people to learn. So we've got a big problem there. The people on the workplace have to be motivated. They have to know the goals for the language, and the workplace need to help them to learn the language in the right way and to help them learning it. And the internet was another opportunity. So on Roskilde, they've made an application where you can try to be on work when you're at home. You can walk into the application and then try to do all the things in Danish that you should do on the workplace. Very interesting way to see, like a game, or we didn't call it a game, learning game, something like that. And then we discussed what do we do in the Nordic country about this thing. And it seems that people in Norway are a little bit wrong, because they think people had to write and read before they learn to speak. And in Denmark, they think the opposite. So we had a discussion what comes first and how to do that. And then we at last discussed a little bit about the Red Cross in Denmark, who tried to get in retired persons to help people to know what is happening on the workplace and how can they help people to get a better combination about the language and the workplace and be a part of it. So I think that was a little view in our discussion. Have you anything? No. Nothing more? Okay, thank you.
Good. Then we good. Yeah. Okay, so that was a sum up of the three different tracks. You have to remember that we record all of these presentations. So we will, even if you were not in the right track, or you ended up in the wrong track, you will be able to watch these presentations afterwards.